So it's been an interesting journey where a lot of this community has really thought about these things a long time. It's not necessarily that, ChatGPT was released in late 2022 and we decided to do a conference. We actually predated it by a few years.
Welcome back to the Digital Ministry Podcast. I'm your host, Nick, and as always, the Digital Ministry Podcast is brought to you by Media Impact International. And today, we're chatting with Joshua Seale, Executive Director of Missional AI. Joshua, you've been on the podcast before, but we've got this big event coming up that I know our team's all excited about, and happy to spend some time with you chatting about Missional AI.
Yeah, great to be with you, Nick, and great to be with the Digital Ministry Podcast community as well.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been having some really fun conversations about just how the world is evolving, in AI and the implications of all of that. Our team attended Missional AI last year in Plano, I think it was.
Plano, in Texas, Dallas.
But you guys are going into the heart of things this year in Silicon Valley. Tell me about that. How did that decision come about, and why there?
Yeah. So it's always felt inevitable that we'd probably end up in the California Bay Area at some point. It wasn't a question, I think, in many ways of if, but rather when we would go to California. And I think this year we started to look at new venue options, venue locations. As we've continued to grow, it's gotten harder and harder to find churches or venues that could accommodate, 600 to 800 to 1,000 rowdy AI developers and builders. And we felt like this year it was the right year to make a shift to a venue where we could actually, define our own program. We wouldn't have to be out of the space by 5:00 for evening church or things like that. And those are all great things. But we really felt like this year we needed to make the shift so that people could continue to connect and could continue to really network and connect with each other at the event. And so we ended up looking at 4 cities and really trying to figure out, okay, where should we be? So it was Atlanta, Dallas, Orlando, and San Jose. And candidly, the price for San Jose was only slightly more expensive than the cheapest option. And it kind of felt like at that point, we might as well just make the jump now rather than later. Because it was only about a 5% difference at the end of the day for it. And it just really enables us to connect with a lot more people who are at the forefront of this technology with the big labs and big tech. We just kind of get to be more in the center of where this technology is being built and really being driven from. And so, that's kind of the journey we went on in terms of deciding to move to California.
I noticed the venue, hosting at a hotel, and I got really excited about it actually when I registered, because, and I wouldn't have stated it the way that you just said it, but you're right. Like last year, it was kind of a shuffle to figure out okay, so who's going where for dinner and who's gonna where are you gonna be later tonight, and everybody kind of dispersed from the venue, which was fine. It was a great experience, but having everything centrally located, and you guys have a room block available, so when people register, they can get a hotel. Everybody, that community around Silicon Valley is already strong, but it's a gathering place for those conversations to continue, which was, no disrespect to the speakers, but the thing I love is all of the hands-on conversations that happens after you hear somebody present this great idea, and then you're starting to talk to people kind of in your circles about hey, what do you think about that? And it's all the side conversations that are are just as valuable as the main presentation. So I'm a fan of the setup this year.
No, that's really good to hear. And yeah, I think honestly, it's kind of weird. This is like the one conference where I feel like tech innovators actually enjoy networking. I think, there are a lot of introverts.
Right.
I'm an introvert, but at the end of the day, what's exciting is, most the leading thinkers in this space when it comes to AI, mission, and people really building in the space. These are the people you want to be talking to and be hanging out with. And I think, we at some points, even last year, kind of felt like we needed to just give more space for networking because, people, and again, it's just part of it, but like, would be in sessions and, would be out connecting and talking with each other. And I think that's great. Like that's part of this. But one of the things we really wanted to do is be very intentional about where we give some space for people to connect.
Well, I think you guys are creating a great opportunity for that. We kind of dove right in, and I spoke about Missional AI on this podcast last year, but for those that might not be familiar, can you give us a little origin story? Like, how did this come about, and what's your vision for this year?
Yeah. So Missional AI is actually in its 6th year. So we started our first official summit in 2021. The initial one was actually planned for March 2020, but we all know what happened there. And obviously that got canceled and postponed. But yeah, we're actually now in our 6th year. And so with the origin going back even farther to 2018, 2019, so it's been an interesting journey where a lot of this community has really thought about these things a long time. It's not necessarily that, ChatGPT was released in late 2022 and we decided to do a conference. We actually predated it by a few years. And it's been a really interesting journey to see how, just how that has enabled us, I think, to kind of credibly have this conversation and really see unique people from across the like digital ministry ecosystem. And I think the beauty of it is that, initially started in Bible translation. I would say the core problem that those early missional AIs were looking at was around Bible translation. I even was looking at the some old stuff today, and I think it was something how the first one was something around how NLP can accelerate Bible translation was the theme. I mean, just such a wonderfully nerdy title.
Yeah.
But I think one thing we've been really excited about is that we've brought in other parts of the ecosystem fairly early on. And, we've been very careful the last few years to really balance it across evangelism, discipleship, church, and also Bible translation and Bible engagement. And so one of the things we love is that there's just diverse people from across different parts of this ecosystem, and we can learn from each other, we can share, and we can connect. And there's been so many amazing conversations where you'll have people sharing what's worked in Bible translation and applying that to evangelism context, and vice versa. So we really love that dynamic of this summit as well. I think one more thing I'll just point out is The Economist actually did an article in December, and the byline on this is Climbing the Tower of Babel. Christian missions want to translate the Bible into every language by 2033. And this is The Economist, British publication.
Oh, yeah.
Great publication. But just want to read this line from here. The Bible is already the most translated book ever. It is available in more than 750 languages. But the Christian movement, would like to see it in each of the world's roughly 7,000 living tongues. To achieve this, believers are enlisting a new tool for their spiritual quest, artificial intelligence. And it actually outlines a lot of what we are seeing in the Bible translation space, even quoting Daniel Whiteneck. I don't know if you all know Daniel Whiteneck, but he's actually the founder of Missional AI. I'm not. I've been leading it since 2023, but it was pretty amazing and a little bit of a moment of pinching myself when reading this article back in December and seeing that, like there's something really interesting that this movement has leaned in early and really led in this space. And the fact that The Economist, very secular magazine, actually recognized that and did an article in their culture section is just really pretty amazing. And I think that it just goes to show that something interesting is happening in the space, and we really should look at how this tool is being used in accelerating Bible translation, but also just making areas of discipleship and evangelism more just richer and better for people, and augmenting human efforts as well too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that article when it published, and it was pretty favorable. I kind of, when The Economist talks about Christianity, I read it holding my breath, like waiting for the punch, But yeah, I would agree. I was impressed by that, and
there was no biting British sarcasm.
Yeah,
which
it was like being recognized as like a powerful tool for advancing Bible translation, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
And what a cool thing for you guys to be there from the beginning, and for Daniel to be quoted. That's awesome.
Totally. And we're going to have one of the leaders within the Bible translation movement just kind of share what they've learned, what they can kind of share to the rest of the ecosystem. And not to say, they would be very clear that they have not arrived. They will caveat that there's still loads and loads and loads of challenges. But I think it is kind of an interesting place to celebrate some successes and share some of those successes across the ecosystem.
Well, I think that's why this conversation is so great at Missional AI, both from the stage and, among the audience members, because who can say that they've arrived? I mean, this stuff changes. And, some listeners of this podcast might be like, oh, great, we're talking about AI again. Guys, like, it's changing so much every week. Like this whole OpenClaw thing that has blown up, in the last month.
Yeah. 3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy what's happening, and the rate of change and the acceleration that's taking place. So, I mean, how are you and the speakers managing that? Because, I mean, we're recording this, beginning of March. By the time the event comes around at the beginning of April, there's going to be stuff released that we don't even see coming yet. Yeah.
I mean, we have to trust God that He is bringing the right speakers in place. I don't feel like we'll be able to, fully hit everything in perfect timing and with perfect context. But I would say, like, one of the things we are being very intentional this year about this year's program is we actually want to take people on a journey when it comes to the experience of missional AI. In the past, we've literally just packed in keynotes and breakouts. And again, like, we have so many great people in this community that should be and are able to share, that we tend to even fill more in because, Richard from Google is going to be there, or other people like that are able to come. But I think this year, one of the approaches we wanted to take was actually to bring people along on a narrative journey through the few days we have together, and really try to theme key talks around those things. And so, I think that's one thing we're trying to do is think thoughtfully about where we sit and where we think this is going and where those themes relate. And so I'd love to just walk through at a very high level, like the journey we plan on taking people on, if that's okay.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'm excited to hear about it.
So in day one, we're going to have innovations in AI, where we really want to overview what is going on in this space. What are the interesting ventures? What are the interesting ideas that we should be considering when it comes to where AI is going, especially as it relates to missional efforts. The second plenary session on day one, the block will be Kingdom AI, which will really look at what should our kingdom approach to AI be. I'm really hearing from people who are actively building in this space and really trying to intentionally build with a redemptive framework in mind for AI. And then on the end of day three, the last plenary session will be global perspectives on AI. One of our biases, and I think this is probably MII's bias as well, is that some of the most interesting stuff in this space is actually not coming from North America, but it's places like Nairobi or Bangalore or Jakarta that there's just some really interesting innovation happening in the missional space. And we really want to champion some of those voices and some of those projects as well. So that's where that's where we'll be finishing on day one. Day two, we'll start the day with a plenary session around acknowledging the risks and challenges. There are a whole lot of risks and challenges that this technology poses and face. And I think we are very open, clear-eyed and very open about that reality. We do have a very redemptive perspective and lens, but ultimately, like we cannot actually get there unless we actually face the challenges and the risks. And so we'll be looking deeply at that. But then we won't leave everyone there. We plan to then finish the day with AI and the Imago Dei to really wrestle with what is God calling us to? How does God want us to see this situation and really help us understand it? So that's the end of day two. And then day three will be funding AI will be the first plenary block. We really, nothing pains us more than to see loads of brilliant people building brilliant things, but not having the resources they need. And again, like we're not a venture fund, like we don't know what all those pieces are, but I think as a community, we really want to help ventures and people within our community with how they should think about funding, how funding in this space should look. So we have some VCs as well as some other really important people in this space that will be sharing with us. And then lastly, we'll be closing out with ethics and standards. And so really just thinking about what are the standards and the ethics we should have in place when it comes to building with this technology. And yeah, that will be, and then we'll finish with the future of missional AI as a conversation as well. But that's going to be basically what the 2.5 days look like as well.
That's great. I love that setup, and I think that there's a couple of things I was thinking about as you were running through that. One is a conversation that I had this morning with a ministry team where they said, they'd been using some AI tools to create like copy, and that type of thing. And the person that they were submitting this to was using like an AI checker. And so it came back as like too heavy on AI, or it sounds like AI, and I was like, what does sounds like AI mean? And it kind of leads us to this bigger question of like, which is better, AI or a person? But I don't think it's binary anymore. And I was just kind of going into explaining about, there's been a lot of stuff published about Claude Cowork in the last couple of weeks, about all of the work that you can do to set it up to match brand voice and even at the instruction level. But I'm thinking more about like guiding the output through principles. And a lot of the sessions that you just outlined kind of feed into that concept. Like I can take ethics, I can take risks, I can take different elements that you listed, and I can use those to create like a .md file or the instruction kind of framework for some of these tools, so that whatever sounds like AI means, like that's not what you get. You get basically a magnification of the voice and the look and feel and the brand, if we can use that word. So I think a lot of that, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, it's multiple days, but the application seems to be fairly obvious in like guiding and instructing some of these tools Are you going to touch on that at all, or is that kind of left up to people to build that out or put those dots together themselves?
We're going to actually have a lot of breakouts this year around how these tools should be looked at and thought about in terms of human augmentation. I would say, putting my Bible translation hat, my main day job is with Biblica. It's a Bible translation agency. We actually have a whole team of AI for Bible translation. There's a whole team that's working on that challenge, especially in minority, really difficult, low resource languages. And one of the things that's been fascinating, I would say the whole goal and how we're looking about AI is acceleration. So Bible translations typically take 10 years to do, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, but often longer. I think the reality is if we are focused on wanting to have the Bible translated in every language by 2033, we're hopelessly behind. And so acceleration has been the key thing that's been driving our questions. But the interesting thing is, like, you talk to those teams, and it's not AI replacing humans. It's AI augmenting humans. It's taking what was normally a 10-year process and trying to accelerate down to 5, and then accelerating it down to 2. And even the Economist article references that, it's kind of, that's the trajectory that this has been on. And I think it's similar in a lot of places. I think ultimately we should use these tools in a way that makes us more human. And the things that are most important, it should really enable us to do more of that. So if it's God's word, if it's evangelism, like, we ultimately should, that's sacred. Like, that is a sacred part of what we do. But I think the reality is like, we can use this technology to move us from a place of never having enough, never being able to do enough, to actually being able to move some key things forward. And I think that that's the primary lens in which I would look at that. And I would kind of see that. And I would say, like, on the personal, there will be some sessions on, how should you be looking at this as a professional and as a leader, like, how can this augment what I do? So there will be some sessions. I would point out, James Poulter, if you know him, is writing an amazing book called AI at Work. And he's leader in our movement. So there's going to be some great insight into what that could look like. But I would say we primarily are looking at it from more a community element than an individual element. But there's loads of people that I would highly recommend engaging with. James Poulter and Don Barger from IMB just did an episode on the Missional AI podcast just about OpenClaw and how they're just building loads of prototypes and just really using these tools to not to do more missional engagement and to explore what that further missional engagement could be. So there's some great conversations out there. I definitely would recommend that episode we launched last week. If you're interested in that. But there will be some of that, but I would say primarily we'll be looking at kind of the big questions that relate to overall missional engagement globally.
Great. So you talked a little bit about funding. Sometimes funders don't want to, and I'm curious about, like, how you would address this. And this can either be like a Missional AI stance or yours, personally. So feel free to state which you're speaking from. But oftentimes I've been challenged by kind of the short development cycles and the short reporting required. Often funders get excited by big vision, but I want my first report in 6 months. The project runs on an annual basis. I need KPIs reported back by month 12 or something. There's a learning curve here with some of these tools, and stuff's constantly developed. developing. Like how do you minimize kind of the ramp up time to move to actual kind of outcomes, knowing that there's kind of this reporting requirement that's baked into that conversation? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not a straightforward thing. I'm 6 years working at Biblica this month, and we've scaled multiple million person endeavors, and like some of them have taken 5 or 6 years to hit a million. Some of them have taken 9 months, and there's not necessarily a clear silver bullet on any of that. And I think like if you're clear with funders and with donors from the beginning that this is a longer term project, this is longer term impact we're going after, I think the good ones will stick with you. The good ones will really walk through both successes and failures. We've had quite a few failures along the way as well too. Projects we've had to cut, projects we've had to tell donors, hey, total wash, like didn't really end up with anything. But within that, like you have your successes. And I think one of the things we want to do as a community is, give people courage to continue to build and to try. I know it's a reality. You're not going to hit it on the first go and the first try. But I think if you remain adaptable and you work towards, wanting to have an impact and really connecting both from, these are the funds we need in order to do it. But then on the flip side, like how do we make this really known to the people we want it needs to be known to? How can we develop product market fit? How can we really provide value to our users? Mm-hmm. It is a process. And I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have the funding AI section was that's part of the equation. But one thing I'll mention too that we're doing throughout the summit is we're also partnering with Missional Labs. So Tyler Preeb and crew, and they're amazing. They run such a good cohort, accelerator cohort. But they have, I think, 10 ventures from the Glue Hackathon that they've been working through, and they're going to be presenting actually through the summit. And so we really want it to remain practical. Yeah. And so, we'll be hearing from these ventures, from these innovators, from people who are in the midst of it, and responding to that as a community. And I think, cheering them on where that is needed, but also trying to, I think make connections with them and for them as we're able to as well. We also are going to be having quite a few demos throughout the summit where we really want to try to practically show how some of these things are being built and developed and share some practical tools. So I would say, the reason I went into like how it's worked for us is like, we don't necessarily have an answer yet, sure, but we want to continue to wrestle with it as a community and give space together to help figure that out and understand how we can, really generate impact and even bring, I would say, funders along with us to help them understand like, hey, these are the challenges. These are the things that are not going to go well, but ultimately on the other side for kingdom investment and kingdom impact, like we have to have that long-term view and be really willing to wrestle that through together. So we're excited to see how it goes. It's a bit of an experiment, but we're going to have fun with it either way. So
for sure. No, I'm sure it'll be valuable. I love the location. I used to live and work in Silicon Valley when I was with GMO, and there's no place quite like it. I mean, people are starting to say like, oh, Austin, there's these other kind of tech centers that are popping up, but there's no place like Silicon Valley. And, and so just I want to give my kind of strong endorsement and encouragement. Not only is the the platform or the product of missional AI good and worth consuming. Like, I would encourage everybody that's interested in this space to go register today, grab your room block before those are gone.
Yeah.
Because I'm expecting just the people in some of these Christian communities that are living and working in places like Meta and Google and, and others.
Yeah. Apple, Netflix. I mean, yeah, it's all right
Yeah.
there.
And like you already said, I mean, this is where a lot of these tools are being developed out of here, so you're going to pull believers from those companies into the conversation. It's going to be fascinating to kind of see what comes out of that. But I wanted to ask you, like, as people are preparing to attend this event, it's not, missional AI to me is not like a come sit and consume. It's kind of like come be ready to engage. So how would you encourage people to kind of be prepared? Like, what can they do ahead of showing up to get the most out of it?
Yeah. We will be sharing more in the coming weeks. And so there's going to definitely be some guides on what to expect more around the schedule as well. So I would say, all of that stuff is coming, which, yeah, we'll be sharing soon. But I would say one of the things we are doing a little bit differently this year is we would like to, one thing we noticed last year was, people just wanted to connect more. And we decided to intentionally not overprogram things this year. And to be honest, we're actually doing less talks and less keynotes than last year, because we wanted to preserve some space for people to connect. So we will be having what we're calling connection sessions. And I think one thing just to say and to help people understand how to prepare, how to think about that is, we plan on having a session on the first day around what identity people inhabit. So, are you a C-suite leader, innovation leader, developer, or entrepreneur? Let's break those people into 4 groups across all organizations, and you'll figure out where you fit in that. And let's do some practical sharing and consulting together. So we have a lot of ideas. We're working on what exactly this is going to look like, but I'm incredibly excited about it because I actually think most of the most interesting people in the world in this space are at this conference. I feel it every year.
Yeah, I would
and
agree.
The fact that you can learn from each other is great. So, there's going to be sessions where we're in small groups and we're mixing people up, and there'll be opportunity to share, hey, these are the challenges I'm facing. Here's the opportunities I'm facing. Could you give me feedback on that? And I think one of the beauties is that, I really think our community, not necessarily the speakers as brilliant as they are, actually have some really great things to share with each other. So if you're a C-suite leader or an innovation leader and you're trying to figure this out, our hope is that you'll be able to make connections with other people in this space that, you can get some advice, obviously, in that connection session, but also have a connection, share details, share contact details, and continue those conversations and have that connection with the community. And then in day 2, we're going to mix it up again and say, okay, now let's look at it from like domain point of view. Are you in Bible engagement or in translation, evangelism, advancement, fundraising, or the church? And let's have those same conversations, but have it with a different group and a different subset. And so we're excited because it really allows for people to connect, and I think really for you to walk away with a whole different set of connections. And yeah, I would just say that as we lead up to things, we'll be sharing more on the Missional AI podcast. We'll be sharing more, obviously, in our communication channels, but we really would love to engage deeply with, love to see people engage deeply with each other leading up to the summit as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. We'll put the Missional AI podcast in the show notes, but also we'll include like a link to the registration. So where can people go to register?
Yeah, if you go to missional.ai, yeah, that's the site for all things Missional AI. You can register right there. There's loads of information. I will mention that the room and registration blocks are ending on March 10th. And like the hotel will have some ability to go a little bit longer, but it's really finishing at March. March, it's basically ending around March 16th. And so I would really encourage people, like, if you want to come, if you want to take advantage of the discounted hotel rate, which is 30% off their normal rate, which we negotiated, like, I would just highly encourage you to register, to come, to book your ticket.
Okay. That's a good note for me to get this podcast published pretty quick. So,
yeah, sorry.
No worries. We'll make sure to get that done. Joshua, thanks for sharing. I'm excited to see you in person again. And,
totally.
Looking forward to being there.
Yeah, no, it'll be really good to see you again, Nick. And yeah, again, there's you and so many others. It's just so good to be with and to have conversations, to catch up on things and to hear what's going on.
Well, I always learn so much. It's such a fun room to be in and be a part of. So yeah, I would just encourage people listening, if you're at all interested in this space or trying to figure out how these tools, just do yourself a favor and register and supercharge that effort. In 3 days, you can come away with, I mean, what would take weeks or months in order to kind of gather the data, the information, the context. It's such a great thing that you guys are doing. So happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for being here, sharing with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm a subscriber to the Digital Ministry Podcast, and it's really good conversations you guys have here. So really appreciate the opportunity.
That's great. Thanks. Well, take care, my friend. And to all you listeners, subscribe and like and do all the things. And then we'll see you again next time.